I'm Jolene Wynn, and this is the Porn Addict's Wife podcast, episode number 153, Acute Pain. I used to think of myself as the wife of a porn addict, but I do not think of myself that way anymore, and you don't have to either. In this podcast, I am going to teach you how to manage your mind and your emotions so that you can stop living your life around your husband's pornography addiction. I am going to teach you how to stop being the victim and how to conquer his pornography addiction, even if he never does. I'm Jolene Wynn. I am a certified life coach, and I am a member of the LDS faith and the wife of a former porn addict. And this is a podcast for the Porn Addict's Wife. Hello, my ladies. How are you? Happy Monday. I hope you guys are having a great day. I am coming off of a great week and weekend. My daughter Georgia was baptized into our church this weekend, and so my husband's parents came and stayed for a couple of days, and then my parents came up for the baptism, and so we have just been having so much fun. If you guys follow me on Instagram, then you've seen all the pictures, and that's why I've been a little silent on Instagram, but it has been so wonderful to have so many family members and to just have so many people show up and support her and have her feel so loved. And the cutest thing ever was that she invited this little girl from her class in school, and she came, and I have never seen an 8-year-old girl happier than in the moment that her friend walked through the door. It was adorable, and it just made her day, and it was so cute. And so her baptism was wonderful, and it has been a great week. And my kids also had spring break, which I love. You guys, I know my old neighbor used to make fun of me and used to say, I know you love spring break, but I can't wait for my kids to go back, which was totally fine. Because, let's be honest, we've all had those days, but I just love having my kids home. I do. And I'm homeschooling all of them next year, and I can't wait. I don't want them to be in school. I want them to be home. I want to be with them. I want to be the one teaching them. And so that is what we're going to do. And I'm so excited about it. And I was so happy to have all 5 of my kids home all week. It just made my day every day. I was so happy. So I just loved it. I hope you guys had a great week. It is wonderful weather here. Oh, one thing we got to do this week was we got to go strawberry picking. In North Carolina, they have these beautiful fields of strawberries, and you can go pick your own bucket of strawberries. So we bought 3 buckets, and you just pay by the bucket. And we bought 3 buckets of strawberries, and my kids loved it. And we have so many strawberries. And my husband was like, we're going to have to freeze some of these. And I said, don't worry. Georgia will eat all of them before they go bad. And I'm pretty sure she's at least halfway through. Just she herself, let alone everyone else who's also eating strawberries. Georgia has taken care of half of them. So we're good. We won't have to freeze any. In fact, we may have to go pick some more because she's eaten so many. But it's been wonderful. So it is beautiful here, and I am excited for a couple of things that I want to share with you guys. Well, one is I get to spend so much time this week with all of you who signed up for the How to Set Boundaries workshop, and I cannot wait. If you haven't signed up, there's still time. You can still sign up. Go to my website, jolenewynn.com. You can go to the Coach Week tab, and you can join us. You can either join us live every day, Monday through Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or you can get access to the call recordings, and I'm going to be helping you. I'm going to be teaching you what a boundary is, what it's not, how to set one, and all the different types of boundaries. Did you guys know there's different types of boundaries? I've been learning so much about boundaries as I've been preparing for this, and I'm so excited to share everything that I've been learning, and really excited to spend 4 days. The reason that I could have done this in a day, but the reason that I wanted to spend 4 days was that I wanted to give everybody an opportunity to get coached. So even if you if you're not interested in boundaries, if you don't want to set a boundary, if you don't even want to be involved in that part, that's totally fine. You can come anyway. You can still sign up and get 4 days of coaching, and it can be on any topic. So if there's anything on your mind or anything that you're struggling with, come join us. I would love to work with you. I set aside 4 days for this reason, so that you can come and I can help you with whatever it is that you are struggling with, so that you can see what coaching is like, especially if you're curious about coaching or curious about joining my coaching program, but you're not really sure what to expect or what it would be like. Then I would love for you to come join us and just try it out and see. It's kind of like a little sample. When you go to an ice cream store and they have all the different flavors and you want to try a sample, that's what this is like. You just get to try a little sample of what coaching is like, and you get to join us for the whole week for $19, which is a steal of a deal for 4 days. And I can't wait to see you guys there. So again, you can do that. I would love to see you there. Go to my website, jolenewynn.com. Go to the Coach Week tab. All the information is there. You can sign up right there. And the other thing that I wanted to let you guys know is that I am so excited to announce my live in-person retreat that I am hosting this year. For those of you guys who've been around for a little bit, I hosted my very first in-person retreat last year in October in Nashville, Tennessee, and it was amazing. It far exceeded my expectations, and I'm going to do it again. So last year in October, we did it in Nashville, and this year we are doing it again in October, but this time we're going to the beach. We are going to the beach in North Carolina, and I would love for you guys to come. So I'm just throwing this out there. You can't sign up yet. You guys, my clients will be able to sign up first. So all of my clients will get early access to the availability. There's only 15 spots. And so they will get early access to that. And then if there's any spots left, it will open up to y'all. So I will be letting you guys know when you can sign up for that. But in case you want to put it on your calendars and start looking at it, it is going to be October 19th to the 22nd here in North Carolina. And I cannot wait to see who comes. It was fascinating last year to do this. I started talking about it, I think last January, and I had so many women say, oh my gosh, I'm totally there. Let me know, and I'm going to make it happen. And it was fascinating to see who came and who didn't. And so I am just thrilled to see who is going to come this time. We have a completely different theme this year. There's something that I really want to talk about. We're going to be talking about kind of reinventing yourself, re-identifying yourself, and recreating who it is that you want to be, recreating how you think of yourself. And so if that sounds appealing to you, again, keep those dates on your calendar. My clients will get first dibs, and so they might sell out, but if they don't, then before they come to you, then you guys will get an opportunity to come, and I would love to see you there. But if you know that you want to go, if you know you want to be there, then come join my coaching program first, because you will get early access to sign up for the live in-person retreat, and I can't wait to see you guys. Okay. Today, ladies, I want to talk about acute pain. This is something that's been on my mind lately. And acute pain is when you are in those moments of emotional distress, shall we say. This could be when you're faced with the death of a loved one, or the loss of a job, or when your husband relapses, or maybe you just find out something about your husband that you didn't know before. Maybe it's, you find out something that your child is doing that you didn't know about, right? Anything that's causing you emotional distress. And you kind of go into this severe acute pain rather than chronic pain, rather than kind of the dull or lower threshold pain, but that's more constant. This is something that's more overwhelming, right? It's more acute. You guys with me? So I feel like there have been definitely been feeling more acute pain over the last couple of months. There have been times where I felt more acute pain. You guys know that I've been going through stuff with my husband, found out about things that I didn't know about before. And in November, that was the week before Thanksgiving. So I would say that November, December, there were a lot of weeks, that first week or two, maybe 3, was a lot of acute pain, and it has slowly gotten less and less and less. There's been more space in between, but I have still had days or weekends or weeks where I have felt that acute pain. But the more I sit with it and the more I process it, the less it happens, right? The more space there is in between those times. You guys with me? But I want to talk to you today about how we typically respond to acute pain and how we can make that a little bit easier on ourselves, how we can change how we respond to it. My hope is to give you some tools to use so that when you respond to it, it can be done in a manner that helps you get through it in a much healthier way for you. Okay, so let's talk about this for just a moment. All right, so when we have a circumstance happen in our lives that we have a lot of thoughts about, then we will often feel a lot of emotion, and it will often feel very overwhelming. And one of the things that we typically do, there's a number of responses that we typically have to this overwhelm of emotion, to this uprising overflow of emotion. And one of the things that we typically want to do that isn't helpful is we tend to judge ourselves for that response, right? So let me give you an example. One of my clients last week, she has been working with her husband, known about his addiction for a while. They have been working together she's been working with me. He's been working with a therapist. They've been going to couples therapy, and they've been working on coming up with, or doing a couples kind of a bear all, where he tells her everything that has happened that she didn't know before. And this is very normal to be done with a therapist. This is something that many of my clients have done. And she was preparing for this mentally. She knew it was coming. We'd coached a lot around it. And it was a week ago. And when that day happened, she found out a lot of information that some she had guessed at, some she didn't know the details of. She found out a lot of details about his addiction that she didn't know previously. And so it brought up a lot of new thoughts with a lot of new emotion, which is no problem. Except that then she started having thoughts like, this is really overwhelming, right? And I should be past this already. Or I should be over this already. Or I feel like I'm spiraling backwards, right? A lot of times when we have this surge of emotion come up, one of our tendencies is to judge ourselves for that emotion. And that is not going to help you, because then what we end up doing is we end up layering emotions on top of what we're already feeling. So rather than just feeling the pain, the acute pain that we're actually feeling and just processing it, now we're feeling the acute pain. And on top of that, we have self-judgment. And then on top of that, we feel guilty for judging ourselves. And so we just end up layering all of these emotions. So rather than just dealing with the acute pain, now we have 7 different layers of all of these different emotions that are coming up from our own judgment. Thinking things like, I should be past this already, and we feel, silly because we think we're overreacting, right? Or maybe we think that we should be past this already, and so we're not being sympathetic to him, or we're blowing this out of proportion. And so we have a lot of self-judgment that way. We have a tendency to judge ourselves for the things that we feel. And I cannot say this enough. Your feelings are valid. You don't need to judge yourself for them. You can just allow them, even if they make no sense to you, even if you think that someone else would respond differently, it doesn't matter. So when you have this influx of emotions, when you are in a period of acute pain, then I want to give you to give yourself permission to be in that experience, to just feel the pain. What if feeling the pain is exactly the right thing to do? I would argue that it is, because the other reaction that we typically do, which isn't helpful, is rather than allowing ourselves to sit and process it, what we do is we shove it down. And we pretend like everything's fine. And we just try to think our way out of our feelings, right? Oh, this isn't that big a deal. It should be okay. Everything's going to work out. Now, there's a difference between retraining your brain to think positively and to rewire your negative mindset. That is very different than avoiding emotion, which is what most of us do, especially in periods of acute pain. What we do is we end up shoving that pain down simply to avoid it. We try to think our way out of our feelings, and you can never do that. You cannot logic your way out of your emotions. They're 2 separate systems. You got to keep them separate, ladies. Trying to put one in charge of the other is never going to work. You will never be able to use your brain to get out of what's happening in your body. It's just not going to happen. So when you're in those periods of acute pain, if you notice yourself trying to talk your way out of it, I shouldn't still be feeling this way. I should be past this. Maybe I'm making this a bigger deal than what it is. Maybe if I just focus on the positive, then it'll be better. No, none of that is going to work. None of that is going to give you the long-term result that you want. It might make you feel better for a moment, but it's not going to create a long-term result, because what that's doing, ladies, I've told you this before, it's like that beach ball. What we're trying to do is shove a beach ball underwater. And it works for a minute, but the longer you try and hold that beach ball underwater, the more resistance you're going to feel, because you're going to get tired. Your muscles cramp, your muscles ache, you fatigue. It is exhausting trying to prevent what happens naturally. And what happens naturally is your body wants to feel and express an emotion, which is just a physical vibration that happens in your body. That's it. But we have so many fears, so many thoughts about our emotions that we want to resist them. Right? We have all the self-judgment that comes on top of it. We all have all of our thoughts about what it means. And we want to resist all of that. We're afraid of it. And so what we end up doing is we try to just pretend, shove it down, and just power through. And again, that works for a very small moment, but it doesn't work in the long run. Now, one thing that I have told my clients over and over, I teach them this in my program, is that when you have periods of acute pain, your brain will go into survival mode often. That's usually the response, and it's totally fine. Survival mode means that your brain will do whatever it takes to keep going, and that's okay. But when you notice it, when you're at a point where you're no longer in acute pain and you're simply in chronic pain, that is when your brain will start to see the result that it has created, and it will start to say, maybe I don't want this. Right? I have so many clients that come to me and say, I didn't even realize I was doing this, but now I have a result in my life where I don't even like my marriage. I don't even like myself. I'm questioning everything. And I don't think that's where I want to be. I've realized now that I have all of this undealt with emotion, and I want to deal with it because it's creating a ripple effect that I don't like. And while that's a wonderful thing, and that's why I'm here and that's what I do, I also want to have grace for the periods in our life where all we can do is power through, where we're in those periods of acute pain and our brain says, let's shove this down and power through because I can't deal with this right now. It's also fine. Your brain is doing exactly what it's supposed to do just to survive. And that's okay. We can have grace for our brain when we look back and see the periods where it's done that. But when you start to become aware of your brain and you start to become aware that your emotions are not something you have to be afraid of, then you can kind of bypass the survival instinct because you know how to deal with it too. It's not just your brain that's in charge, you're in charge of your brain. And so your brain wants to say, let's bury this deep and deal with it later. And this is when you get to be in charge of your brain and you can say, oh, I could do that. And maybe I'll choose to do that on purpose, but I don't have to do that just to get through. I could also choose to feel my feelings. I could also choose to process this in the moment rather than kicking it down the road. Because either way, I'm going to have to deal with it. I'm either going to have to deal with it now or I'm going to have to deal with it later. And if I choose to shove it down and deal with it later, not only am I going to have to deal with the acute pain of the moment, I'm also going to have to deal with all of the effects of shoving it down, right? Because when we shove down emotion, it creates a ripple effect, right? Because we have all of this pent up emotional baggage. So it affects the way we interact with our kids. It affects the way that we interact with our spouse. It affects the way that we interact with ourselves, right? This is when we tend to buffer. We want to avoid our feelings because we have all this emotion coming up, right? This acute pain. And this is another reaction that we do is we try to distract ourselves from our emotion by doing something that feels better. And that's called buffering, right? When we try to distract ourselves, whatever we use to distract ourselves from our feelings, it could be Marco Poloing your girlfriend. It could be social media. It could be online shopping. It could be overeating. Whatever it is that you're doing to avoid your feelings, that's a buffer. And that's one of the things that we do when we have those periods of acute pain. We try to avoid those. We try to distract ourselves from those difficult emotions that come up. And we do so in a way that creates more negativity. There is a ripple effect of overeating, right? So if I have all this emotion that comes up and I don't want to deal with it, and so I eat instead to distract myself, well, if I continuously do that, then maybe I might gain weight. And so now I have a ripple effect of it now that I've gained weight. Are you guys with me? So when you have a period of acute pain, when you learn how to process those emotions in the moment, then you don't have to deal with the ripple effect that comes when you shove it down. You guys with me? I'll give you guys an example. My client last week, the same client, who was talking to me about her husband and all the things that she found out. She found out everything that he did in the past, and she felt very overwhelmed, and she felt like she was spiraling back into her emotions. And she said, I'm having a really hard time with this. I'm feeling very upset with myself because I have all of this emotion that's like kind of coming pent up inside of me. And I'm thinking, what's wrong with me? And this is another thing that we do is we make it mean something about us. All of the emotion, when we think that something is wrong, when we have a lot of negative emotion, our brain thinks, well, what's wrong? Something has gone wrong. That's what our primitive brain thinks. Our primitive brain thinks we shouldn't feel a lot of negative emotion. This means something has gone wrong. What is it? What's wrong with me? It will always take it self-reflective. Well, not always. Sometimes it'll go on the opposite and your brain will be like, well, what's wrong? It'll be like, well, my husband is an idiot and has done so many things that I don't like and done so many things that are mean and terrible and horrible to me, and that's why I'm feeling this way. But a lot of times it will also then say, well, what's wrong with me? Because I'm the common denominator here. I'm the one feeling these feelings. Should I be feeling these feelings? What's wrong with me? Our brain will take it self-reflectively, not in a good way. It will give us almost the blame of what's happening, right? Now, that's a totally different topic, so I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But as she was thinking this, she said, "What's wrong with me?" As she stuck in those thoughts, it started to affect her everyday life. She said that she was losing patience with her kids. And this happens when we use our emotional energy simply to suppress our emotion. When we are feeling a lot of negative emotion, when we're in those periods of acute pain, when you resist that emotion, it takes all of your energy. It depletes your energy to resist emotion, right? Again, imagine that beach ball that you're trying to hold underwater. It takes all of your energy simply to hold it there, to keep it there. And the longer you hold it, the more energy it takes because your muscles start to fatigue. So this is exactly the same way with your emotional energy. When you are trying to resist emotion, you are holding your emotions deep down. The longer you do that, the more fatigued you become. The less emotional energy you have to continue to deal with other people's energy, right? So as you interact with your kids, your emotional energy is very, very low. And so you don't have maybe the energy to deal with frustration that you normally would. So your kids might do something, might come and yell very loudly right next to you, and you might just snap, right? You might just have a moment where you lose it. You don't have the emotional energy for more patience, and instead, the frustration that you feel, you react to it much sooner. That's what happens when we try to resist our emotions. It affects our everyday life. It starts coming out in a way that we don't like, right? And this is usually what happens when we have a period of acute pain. What we actually start to notice is the result that it's creating, because our brain is really sneaky. There's not always a clear circumstance that's creating the pain, right? Stay with me, ladies. I know that there's so many examples of where it does, right? Like my client last week, where she just had this meeting with her therapist and her husband and just found out all of these things, or maybe your husband just relapsed, or maybe there is a death in the family, heaven forbid, or whatever it is. There might be circumstances that your brain can easily identify as the cause of your acute pain. And then there are other times where our brain doesn't even identify the circumstance that we're reacting to. All we can see is the result it's creating, right? Like, I'm losing patience with my kids. I'm yelling at my kids. I am picking fights with my husband and I don't know why, right? Our brain will see the result that's created. That was what it will always see first. And that's just a little red flag to you as an indication of, oh, there's something that's happening here. There's something that is creating a ripple effect. It's always going to be my thought. It's always going to be the thing that I'm thinking about that's creating the ripple effect, but it's always going to be something. Okay, and there's probably an emotion in there that you haven't processed. There's some emotional baggage that you're resisting, that you are reacting to instead. Does this make sense? So ladies, if you are in these moments of acute pain, the things that I want you to remember that can help you get through it is, number one, don't judge yourself. The self-judgment is not necessary. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with what you're feeling. In fact, that is exactly what you should be feeling. Number two, don't resist it. I want you to sit and feel it, process it. If you're in my program, you know how to do this. This is one of the things that we work on a ton inside my coaching program, is how to process the emotion. But it's sitting with it, experiencing it, allowing yourself to feel it inside your body. Don't resist it. Don't shove it down, because you're going to see ripple effects if you do. The other thing is, notice, be onto yourself if you see yourself starting to distract yourself from your feelings, right? One of the ways, again, that we resist our emotions is we try to distract ourselves from it. That's the other thing that we do. So if you notice that you're starting to spend way more time on social media than you normally do, or you just want to get to the end of the day so that you can just turn on a show, or you get really annoyed with your kids when they interrupt you when you're reading a book, or whatever it is, if you notice yourself starting to tend toward these things, then I want you to just catch yourself and say, okay, why am I doing that? What is it that's going on? Again, it's a little red flag, okay? And the other thing that I want to offer, and this is the most important, is that you give yourself grace. Pain is a part of what this experience is. We are supposed to have pain. It is okay. It's a beautiful part of life. I know most of you would not agree with that, okay? Especially if you're feeling it right now, and I understand that feeling. It doesn't feel beautiful in that moment. It feels terrible. It feels awful. It feels like you want to run away and escape. And that's okay. Just sit with those feelings. There's nothing wrong with you. Give yourself the grace to take care of your body, to take care of yourself. One of the best things that you guys can do, ladies, is listen to yourself. I talked about this a lot over the last couple of months about how to take care of yourself when you are experiencing all of these things. But one of the things that always comes to my mind is to limit the things that you're doing. It's to X things out of your schedule, right? Again, your emotional energy should be spent processing that pain. And so look at your schedule, look at your calendar, and let go of some things so that you can focus your energy to deal with and process the pain now so that it doesn't create consequences of you avoiding it later. Does that make sense? So if it requires, hey, getting the kids out of the house so you can take a nap and then you can process the feelings and sit with them, do that. If it's easier for you to have all your kids home so that you know where they are and you can let them watch a show, or maybe you take a bubble bath, whatever it is, maybe you take a sick day from work and you sit and you process, then by all means do that. Now, it's very crucial that you don't use these as excuses or ways to avoid your feelings. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you take an opportunity to take care of yourself and process the acute pain. Because if you don't process acute pain, it turns into chronic pain. And then we're not just dealing with the one moment, we are dealing with the ripple effect of years and years of avoiding acute pain. Now we don't just have the original bone break. I talked about this a couple weeks ago. This was the analogy I gave. It's like if you break a bone and you don't set it immediately and you just say, oh, it'll heal on its own, or let's just, Band-Aid it. Then what's going to happen is not only will that bone never heal correctly, but you will also then have to deal with the results of it not healing correctly. Does this make sense? Not only do you have the pain of the original break, but then you also have the pain of the malformation of the bone now. And maybe you're crippled now, or maybe it got an infection, right? Are you guys with me in this analogy? But when you deal with the acute pain, when it happens, when you deal with the broken bone when it happens, then you can avoid so much more chronic pain issues because you dealt with the problem when it happened. And is that hard to do? Yes. And does your brain want to do all of those other things that I talked about, like shove it down and distract yourself and avoid it and judge yourself for it? Yes. But you guys are brilliant. And you guys are learning so much about your brain. And the most important thing that you know now is that you're in charge of it. So even when your brain says, you know what, I think we should just avoid this. This is when you have the opportunity to be in charge of your brain and start directing your life the way you want it to go. And you say, you know what, we could do that, totally. And maybe I'll give myself permission to do that for a couple of hours. But that's not how I'm going to respond. Why? Because that's not who I want to be. I want to be someone who faces things head on because I am brave and I am capable and I am strong and I can do it. And this is what's going to be best for me in the long run. And I get to decide what's best for me. I know you can do it, ladies. If you want help with this, I'd love to help you. Come coach with me. You can try it out this week. Come join me. You guys are beautiful and amazing. And I'm so glad that I get to spend a little bit of my life with you. So thank you so much for showing up for yourself today because you're amazing. All right, ladies, I'll talk to you next week. Take care. Hello, my lady. I wrote a book and I would love for you to read it. It's called The Not Enough Wife, and you can get it on Amazon today. This book is for any woman who has ever felt like she wasn't enough, not enough as a wife or as a mom, if she didn't have Instagram-worthy enough pictures, if she didn't throw Pinterest-worthy parties, if she ever felt like she was not enough, this is the book for her, and it's for you too. So go to Amazon today, go search up The Not Enough Wife by Jolene Wynn, and grab a copy for yourself and for all the women in your life. I hope you love it, and I can't wait to hear what you think.